For the past few weeks, I've been working on a game about pushing stuff into a hole. Along the way, you get special chests that unlock new stuff to push, and you get special crates that unlock upgrades to your pusher. It's called Get in the Hole, and you can wishlist it on Steam today. I'm also planning to release it on Android and iOS. I'm starting a playtest soon, so come join my Discord if you'd like to take part. I was inspired by mobile game ads like this one, that show the player pushing around large amounts of stuff and dumping it in a hole. This gameplay looks so satisfying that for me, the ad had exactly its intended effect. I really wanted to try this game. The problem? The ad is apparently a lie. Nothing like this actually exists in the advertised game. It upsets me that I can't actually play this. There's something about pushing a bunch of stuff around that just seems so satisfying. But I've been getting better at game development over the last few years. My first released game, a highly reviewed mobile word game called Toggle, led into Merchants of the Stars, a 2D traffic control roguelike. Then, I took the lessons I'd learned and bridged the gap to 3D, creating an early prototype of Fight Island, an action roguelike. With these skills, especially the 3D experience from making Fight Island, I realized I had everything I needed to take things into my own hands. What if I made the satisfying pushing stuff around game that I had always wanted? It wouldn't be exactly the same. I wanted to keep things simple, so I started thinking about ways to distill the game to its barest essence. The first step, a simple hole in an infinite plane. Using my rudimentary Blender skills, I created a giant, thin box as a plane and used a cylinder to cut out a hole. And then the next step was to add something to push with. I liked the idea of a bulldozer like in the mobile game ads, but I knew that I'd quickly get bogged down in specific driving mechanics. Plus, in a quick search, I couldn't find a free or cheap 3D bulldozer model that I liked. I also felt that a bulldozer was not actually integral to the pushing stuff around fantasy that I had, and I could get away with something much more abstract. So instead, I opted for the simplest solution, a Pong-like white paddle or pusher. After trying a few ideas, I settled on moving the pusher with the mouse and rotating it with the A and D keys. It turns out it's actually somewhat complicated to move the pusher with the mouse, because the pusher will often get stuck on objects, while the cursor itself can move freely around the screen. After a lot of hair pulling and math errors, I was finally able to resolve this by constraining the cursor's position to a small neighborhood around the pusher. This lets the player set the intended direction of the pusher without ever being too far away, preventing wild long-range control. With the cursor hidden, I had succeeded in making it feel like you directly control the pusher. With a bit of practice, this control scheme becomes quite intuitive. I'll need to work on something a bit different from mobile, as it obviously lacks both a mouse and keyboard, but I'll figure that out later. Next, I had to add something to push. I knew I would eventually need a large variety of objects to push, and I happened to stumble across KKit, a huge collection of 3D asset packs, many of which were partially free. In particular, I prototyped with this little nugget of copper. It felt to me like its irregular surface shape would make it interesting to push, a little bit less predictable than a perfect sphere. I added one to the game, and immediately knew I was onto something. The next step was simply more volume. I made it rain nuggets, and I couldn't get enough of pushing these things into the hole. I was really excited at this progress. I had definitely made a fun toy, and I knew that was often the first step to making a fun game. More importantly, I felt so close to actually scratching that itch from those misleading mobile game ads. And a funny thing happened. Now, having played this game for a while, with its plain white background and plain white pusher, I actually came to like its aesthetic. It was so clean and simple, like an Apple ad or something. Inspired by this look, I got slightly obsessed with making a beautiful intro animation. At some point, I came up with Get in the Hole, a name I thought was kind of funny and irreverent. I wanted to start with the screen showing that name, plain black text on white screen, Apple ad style, then fade into showing the simple scene of the pusher, a copper nugget, the hole, and some simple instructions. It was kind of a tutorial, but I also wanted it to be art. Oh yeah, I know some of you are complaining about the white background. Well, don't worry, I added a dark mode too. As for sound, for some reason I decided that the game had to have music from the Baroque goat himself, J.S. Bach. I'm really happy he agreed to join the project. In particular, I wanted Prelude 1 in C major from the Well-Tempered Clavier. You might have heard this one before, and in fact it's been playing in the background this whole time. It's a simple and beautiful piece, and it matches well with the fancy museum aesthetic of the graphics. With the site owner's permission, I got a MIDI from the incredible BachCentral.com and arranged it with some instruments I liked. Here's the resulting introduction with the music. To me, the game started to feel like a fancy art gallery. Next, the game needed more variety and some form of progression. I added a bunch of new things, like logs, different types of nuggets, cogs, and berries. It was really cool that each item had a different shape and mass, which made each one a unique challenge to learn to push around optimally. For instance, the log is a fun challenge because it prefers to be rolled rather than pushed face on. Other objects have special effects, like fireballs that increase points for flammable objects. I happened to play the game Luck Be a Landlord recently. It's a slot machine roguelike, and has a neat system where after every spin, you get to choose one of 3 new symbols to add. At the end of each round of spins, you get an item. This keeps the game changing constantly, with frequent additions of new things. I adapted that system, integrating with the hole mechanic. Every few seconds, a chest spawns, and when the chest is pushed into the hole, you get to choose one of 3 objects to add to the game. I wanted to be able to enhance the pusher itself as well, so I made the crate, an alternate chest type that, instead of giving new objects, gives pusher or game upgrades when pushed into the hole, which are quite important because they help you become faster at pushing your new things into the hole. For instance, Stronger allows you to push heavier objects. Gold nuggets, for example, are worth much more than copper nuggets, but are also much heavier and difficult to push with low strength. More Stuff allows a higher maximum number of items on screen at once, which gives you more options about which object to push in the hole at any given moment. Faster Stuff increases the spawn rate of stuff, which is needed so you don't run out of stuff to push in the hole. But what was the actual end-to-end game? Here's what I came up with. I decided to split the game into 8 stages, each 100 seconds long. I put a small clock in the top right to track your progress through the current stage. As the stage progresses, the camera slowly zooms out, increasing the field of play. When the stage is complete, the camera zooms back in and the next stage begins. You're given a bonus between each stage, though I haven't quite settled on what. Most likely a choice of a new pusher form to unlock. But what are the stakes? There's a number at the bottom that tracks how many points worth of stuff you pushed into the hole. I made it so that the number slowly drains, and if it ever reaches 0, you lose. As the stages go up, the number drains ever faster, but thanks to upgrades and new objects, your ability to get points fast will also increase. Overall, the challenge is to use a combination of skill and adding the right objects and upgrades to build an engine that allows you to keep up with the drain rate. I also wanted to reward the player for consistency, so I added a streak bonus. The streak is shown in the top left corner, and is also represented in the rising pitch of the sound played when something goes in the hole. The player gets an extra point for every 5 items in the streak, but if nothing is put in the hole for 3 seconds, the streak is broken. There was just one more thing I wanted to add: minions. I thought it would be fun to have a minion object type that would walk around and push in objects for you. So I found a robot model from KKit and coded it to walk up to the nearest item and kick it toward the hole. This is Sparta style. The main challenges were trying to get the robot to avoid simply walking into the hole, and trying to get it to go behind objects to kick them. I learned a lot about Godot navigation, which was frustrating, but ultimately rewarding. At this point, with the main game loop complete, I was itching to share the project with someone, so I posted a short, poorly edited video on the Godot subreddit. I was surprised and validated to see a positive response, with 166 upvotes on the post, way more than I'd had for any game-related post before. I realized that maybe this was something with the instant appeal that my previous projects had lacked. Maybe I had actually captured some of that mobile game ad magic that I'd been looking for. I decided to kind of rush into things and made a Steam page right away. The game was pretty raw, but it was still a complete, playable game by this point, even if quite small. If I had more success like that first Reddit post, I wanted to be able to capture it in the form of wish lists. I was happy enough with the general art gallery Apple Core look, so I was able to take some screenshots, make some GIFs, make a short trailer, and after a short time, the Steam page got approved. A lot of people on the first successful Reddit post had suggested that the vibe of the game reminded them of cats pushing things off tables. I thought that was kind of brilliant. I found this wonderful cat paw by Soldelf, bought it, and added it to the game. It looked great, but something was missing. So I opened it in Blender, added some bones, and made it bend at the wrist. Not that way, or that way. Yeah, that way. Then, I made the paw do a little swipe whenever the left mouse button is pressed, and made it apply force to any object in the way. The paw has plenty of different textures, and I can easily add more, so it adds a fun way that players can customize their pusher. I then made a short video featuring the cat paw pusher and posted it to YouTube and Reddit. After a few hours, the YouTube short had reached around 900 views and flatlined. Pretty typical for most of my, wait, what? So the algorithm apparently decided the short was good and started showing it to thousands of people per hour. Eventually, it had over 55,000 views and 1,600 likes, an absolute smash hit by my standards. On Reddit, the video got over 250 upvotes, also a relatively huge success for me. So far, these semi-viral posts have only made a small dent on Steam, where the game is currently sitting at around 60 wishlists, but it's still great progress for a couple of weeks. Overall, I feel like this project might have legs. It's still quite small, but I really enjoy playing it, and it seems to have at least a little of the instant appeal that a game needs to be marketable. I hope you'll follow my journey by subscribing to this channel and wishlisting the game. Join my Discord if you'd like to join my upcoming playtest. You can find all the links in the description. Watch this video next about how I made my traffic control game into an incremental roguelike. See you next time!